Okay, so hopefully that'll pick up in the back there. So I'm John. I I have lots and lots of slides. I emailed the professor to ask him particular questions. Maybe I could cut parts out. And he said that everything was fair game. Everything that I asked him about was fair game. So we'll get through what we get through, and then I'll post everything online, and so you'll have that. All right, so final exam, there's the date and location. So about it, the syllabus says the final's going to be cumulative, but biased toward the final third of the course. So he hasn't posted the previous exams, right, the previous finals? He still hasn't posted them, I don't think. So when you see the fall 2013 one, it says that there's no problem solving from the first two parts of the course. That's not going to be true for our exam. So there will be problem solving from the first two parts of the course, even though it will be more simple. That was one of the things I tried to eliminate. So the exams are going to have some problems similar to problem set problems, but also some new material. He believes in an emphasis on application, so I'm sure you guys are used to that by now, but also expect that for the final. And you will not be rewarded for effort on exams. Oh, sorry, wait. Oh, yeah. So no A for effort. You have to get the answer correct. Okay, and also just some things that I've noticed grading other exams. If you're asked about a concept, define it, name it by name. Definitely go for the full for as full answer as you have in the time that you have. Okay. If there's a fire alarm during the exam, we'll continue the exam outdoors, rain or shine. The weather's going to be pretty bad, at least this week. So bring your rain suit. If you miss the final with an excuse that meets university standards, grave absence, all that stuff, you'll receive an incomplete, and you'll retake the course next fall. Okay. And remember, you can still use Piazza to discuss course material with peers, and we'll be checking in as well on Piazza to try to help you guys out. All right. Any questions before we get started? Okay, so the final's going to be weighted toward, obviously, the course material presented after midterm 2. So for me, I divided the review into 3 parts, and those parts are going to be based on the material from midterm 1, midterm 2, and then post-midterm 2. Okay, so big picture for the course. The course looks at a series of phenomena that violate various assumptions of classical economics theory. You guys probably don't have solid classical economics theory imprinted on your brain yet, but that's okay. As long as you know these models, you'll be solid. And then we take classical economics theory, violate assumptions, and then use findings from psychology to try to describe or account for the anomaly. We then explore other implications of this new model, other behaviors it could predict, and various applications. So the first anomaly that we encountered in this course was that demand curves seem to be state-dependent in strange ways. So for instance, people who were randomly given a mug claim to value that mug more than people who were randomly not given a mug. People don't care so much about protecting new forests, but care a lot about selling off or cutting down previously protected forests. And people accept risky bets when they're already losing more than they're winning. All right, so the unifying theme here is that people are loss averse, and there are endowment effects. Okay, so one thing we want to remember is how to work with demand curves. In aggregating demand curves. So a simple example for private good. So if the first demand curve here is for person 1, and the second demand curve here is for person 2, then we sum horizontally to get the aggregate curve at the right. For an example of a public good, in contrast to private good, we actually sum vertically here. So if person 1's demand curve is on the left, person 2's demand curve is in the center, we aggregate vertically to get the demand curve on the right. Okay, demand curves are related to indifference curves, and both are useful tools for studying behavioral economics, because of course preference reversals and all that. So the definition of indifference curve is a set of allocations between money and goods, mugs, et cetera, that somebody is indifferent between, or 2 goods, et cetera. Each person has an entire family of indifference curves. If they have a higher budget, they can get to a higher indifference curve. In the standard model, the indifference curves are going to be parallel to each other. For whatever budget set someone is facing, there's some best indifference curve that they can get to. And the point on that indifference curve that they're able to get to, determines their demand. And that point is going to be where the indifference curve is tangent to the budget set, and the slope is, which has a slope equal to the price. So therefore, the height of the demand curve at a given quantity is going to be the slope of the indifference curve that just raises the budget set at that quantity. And we'll see that in a graph. Apologies for the sloppy handwriting. So here we see 3 points that are tangent, 3 indifference curves, 3 budget sets on the left, and the tangent points are going to help us make up the demand curve as long as there's no income effect. Okay, as noted above, people seem to have different demand curves depending on context. And in one context that we can explain it is reference-dependent preferences. So for example, if you already have a mug, you judge outcomes compared to the status quo of having a mug, or if you plan on buying an MP3 player, you compare outcomes relative to the plan that you've made. Reference-dependent preferences with loss aversion is the type of reference-dependent preferences that explains the endowment effect and other phenomena as well. Right. Okay, so instead of just having a classical utility function with reference-dependent preferences, we're going to have reference points 1 and 2 in the utility function, and they're going to be value functions included in the utility function as well. And where loss aversion comes in is the value of x is going to be x for positive x, but for negative x, we're going to see the value function equal a multiple of x that's greater than 1. So you value gains less than you value the same size loss. Okay. All right. Okay, so here's just an example. So we fill in parameters for both consumption and the value function, and then it's important to remember what C2, C1, C2, R1, and R2 when we're trying to calculate utility here. And we find that Bob losing, well, it doesn't really matter this exact example, but just make sure you know how to do that. Also for normalizing, so normalizing can definitely be useful, but when we're talking about loss aversion, since utility losses with loss aversion are going to be larger than utility gains, be careful about normalizing to 0, because that could accidentally put you in the loss domain. And so you might weight the utility or disutility of that loss differently than, or more so than you would weight the loss of utility that was above 0. Okay, normative implications of reference dependence. With standard preferences and reference-dependent preferences, we can map indifference curves to demand curves, as we saw previously. In both cases, the demand curve is just going to be the collection of quantities demanded at each price. And again, you're going to have, not again, sorry, but in this case, you're going to have a shortcut. If there's no income effect present with reference-dependent preferences, you're going to have a horizontal demand curve with a vertical intercept equaling the slope of the indifference curve. Vaguely remember that from problem sets. And also, just note that as the price goes up, income and substitution effects are going to drive the quantity consumed down. All right. So rationality was an important part of reference dependence. So under the assumption of rationality, we can use observed demand curves. Remember that was mapping WTP and WTA in order to measure consumer welfare. But the problem of reference dependence and the endowment effect in particular and loss aversion is that we get intersecting indifference curves and multiple demand curves, and we don't know which one represents consumers' true value. Furthermore, economists have tried to salvage the normative, so the subjective or predictive value of the behavioral model by claiming that the endowment effect is a special case of state-dependent preferences. And economists have also tried to salvage the positive value of the standard model by claiming that market experience will restore people to rationality. So that's an attempt to maintain the validity of the standard model by economists, really just mathematically much more tractable. And just remember that preference reversals are always a smoking gun for violations of rationality, as we discussed. So there are at least 4 types of reference points. So status quo, where you are now, lagged consumption, consumption from a previous period, goals, what you hope to achieve, and your expectations, what you think you will achieve. Okay. For the Kostecki-Rabin model, your reference point is your expectation, but you also choose your expectation as long as it's rational. Remember the steps for solving Kostecki-Rabin model problems, and we'll look at the formula in a second. So we first calculate the utility for each outcome, eliminate any irrational expectations, choose the highest utility action or outcome of all of the possible, or out of the remaining outcomes, and then 4, you're going to expect to get the thing that you choose, because it doesn't make any sense to follow through on a plan where you choose something different than what you expect to choose. Okay. So here we've got generic version of the Kostecki-Rabin model, reference-dependent preferences, maybe with or without loss aversion. Okay, so question, should you buy a $5 pony if your utility function is the generic form of the model? So step 1, make sure you calculate utility for each outcome. Utility of actually buying, given that you plan to buy, utility of actually not buying, given that you plan to buy, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so eliminate, the second step is eliminating any irrational expectations. So what action here would be irrational? Right, yeah, so buying in both cases is going to end up being an irrational plan because it's less, in both cases, it's less than the counterpart plan of not buying. So we would compare the first 2 and see that the utility is higher if the action is don't buy, and then we compare the last 2, and then we see that the utility is again higher if the person doesn't buy. And so we keep the 2 options of not buying. All right. And so step 3 is going to be choosing the highest utility action and outcome. And we've eliminated both options to buy in actuality. And so we're only left with the action don't buy, which is our what we actually end up doing. And step 4, you need to expect to get the thing that you choose because it's not rational otherwise. So in this case, don't buy gave us the highest utility as the actual outcome that we took. And so expecting to get the thing that you choose requires that you plan to do the thing that gives you the highest utility, which is don't buy. So the optimal, so the solution to the Kostecki-Rabin model here is don't buy given your expectation of don't buy. Okay. All right, so risk versus loss aversion. I saw a couple of these things on prior exams, and so I just wanted to make sure that I included this. All right, so the standard model that economists talk about is a risk aversion model. This is what you see in Econ 1. So this essentially says money is great. Utility, which is on the vertical axis, increases as X, the quantity that you consume increases. However, we see that there's declining marginal utility, so the more X that you consume, the smaller the increase in utility that you get from that increase in consumption. So one implication of this model is that losses will hurt worse than gains. So we see let's see, if we started at X here and we went down to this point here, we would see a steeper decline in our utility than if we started at the reference point here and moved to this point here, which is an equal size increase to this decrease. But even with this equal size change in consumption, the utility gain from this increase is much smaller in magnitude than the loss if we lose an equal size of consumption. Okay, but often the loss is not a lot worse. So the slope, if we're at some large amount of money, typically just far away from zero, like $50 or above, in the data we tend to see that the marginal utility of gaining or losing doesn't have a big, you don't really see a big difference in the difference between the gaining and losing the same amount of money around that reference point. I'm using the term reference point loosely here. Okay. So why is loss aversion different? In the gains domain, we see something that looks like the risk aversion model, but we also, in the loss domain, have steep aversion to losses, loss aversion. So a kink is not a curve, this kink can be wherever your reference point is. Losing, so essentially the point is losing even $1 because of the exact shape of the kink at your reference point, which is here 0. The slope in the loss domain right next to your reference point is going to be much steeper than the gain just to the right of your reference domain. And that's what's shown in that the little circle there. And if this doesn't look familiar, make sure to do your readings. Okay, risk versus loss aversion, which model is better? So loss aversion, and this is from the readings as well, explains small stakes better, explains small risks better. So folks are super averse to even just small losses in money. However, loss aversion doesn't tell us what reference point to use or what framing to use. So we require these extra 2 pieces of information when we use the loss aversion model. Okay, so loss aversion is overall a better tool, but requires more information. But narrow framing in and of itself allows us to simplify away from a bunch of other choices without significant harm to, or significant changes to our outcomes predicted by our model. So anybody know Matt Rubin? Anybody had big guy tie-dye shirts? He's the psych and econ king here. One thing he said all the time to us is people aren't that complicated, we've just been doing it wrong. And we're not straying that far from the classical model, it's just making small tweaks that with computers we can handle solving now. However, obviously the standard model has been around for way, way longer, and there's a lot of resistance to behavioral economics. That's why I think this is the only undergraduate class in the country. So that's one nice thing about the standard model, even if it's wrong. Okay, so part 2. All right, so a few things to always remember for utility maximization. People maximize utility, so they don't just choose any option that yields positive utility. Make sure you get the top choice. I know that sounds obvious, but I've seen some problem sets that didn't make that distinction. Also recall that each time period going forward, people remake the plan for the rest of their lives. So they don't look backward. They don't care about the utility from the past. Utility from the past does not affect your utility from this period on, ever, ever, ever. Okay, so always look for shortcuts, especially on exams. I'm under the impression it's going to be, again, a 3-hour sprint rather than a marathon. So hope you guys are in shape, but be careful. So there are cases where you can take shortcuts versus where you can't take shortcuts. So for example, if you smoke today, if the problem assumes that it doesn't influence your choice to smoke tomorrow, so if you're not an addict essentially, you can consider the discounted costs and benefits of smoking for today only. On the other hand, if I am interested in one particular movie, and I can only go to one movie this entire week, then my future plans, my plans for Saturday influence what I can do today. And what I do now influences what I can do later. So in that case, you have to consider the full lifetime plan. Okay, so let's do a quick illustrated example of commitment devices just to refresh. Okay, so assume you work for 3 periods. Each day you're not enrolled in a 401k, you lose 3 utils at the end of your life. Each day you are enrolled in a 401k, you earn 0 utils at the end of your life. And each day you're enrolled in a 401k, you pay 2 utils in contributions to your 401k. Wait, is that a 10 instead of a 0? Let's see. Maybe good. Oh, I think 0 is right. Okay. So in this case, an exponential, sorry, just normalize to 0. That's why I'm bugging out. So in this case, an exponential discounter, remember delta equals 1, beta equals 1, always wants to be enrolled in a 401k. They're rational. They know that they can make plans and follow through with them. And that it'll be the optimal plan for them as well. A beta delta discounter, so a Kostecki-Rabin discounter, who happens to have beta equals 1/2. So remember, beta is the true amount of present bias, and delta equals 1. So there's no long-term discounting that we have to worry about. So this person wants to be enrolled in a 401k, but only tomorrow. So the results that we have from the model are that a full naive, remember full naive is beta hat equals 0, 1. And what's beta hat? Yeah, what you believe about your beta, what you believe about your present bias. So a full naive is going to believe that he's fully sophisticated. A full naive is going to believe that he or she's an exponential discounter, not sophisticated, because sophisticated often has a suboptimal outcome. But the naive believes he's always going to enroll tomorrow. And that's because beta is applied to every future period equally. And a sophisticated in this case, who understands the true value of his present bias in any period, is going to always put off enrolling, as long as there's no deadline, but knows she never will enroll. Alrighty. So we're talking about commitment devices, and obviously, the naive doesn't think that they need a commitment device, right? Because they think they're an exponential discounter, and that they're going to sign up when it's utility maximizing to do so. However, a sophisticated in this case is going to end up with a suboptimal outcome relative to the exponential discounter, who always wants to be enrolled in the 401k, and so he or she might demand a commitment device. Okay, so what does the commitment device look like for a sophisticate with this beta delta profile? So at time 0, a sophisticate wants to approach, they wish they were an exponential discounter, even though they know they're not. But if they were, they would get the utility on the top here, the utility being an exponential discounter, which is only -3. Remember, we normalized. And then however, the sophisticate knows his or her actions of putting it off forever, which is what they're going to do without a commitment device, is going to end up being slightly lower at -4.5. And so at time 0, the sophisticate's going to be willing to pay $1.50, the difference between -3 and -4.5, to commit to enrolling from the start in time 0. All right. At time 1, a sophisticate won't enroll today, but does want to enroll tomorrow. And so his or her utility in time 1 is going to be 0 because I'm just going to say he didn't enroll in time 0 and plans to enroll tomorrow. And since it's time 1, that's going to be time 2. So the discounted value of utility of that is going to be -3.5. And the utility of never enrolling is going to stay the same regardless of what time period you're in because you never make the choice to enroll. And so that's going to be -4.5 again. And so at time 1, the sophisticate is going to be willing to pay $1 for the commitment device. Okay. And at time 2, we have an analogous story. So there's your utility from periods Oh yeah, so the utility of enrolling tomorrow and not today, we're going to get a negative utility from, I changed it so it would work better. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So you get negative utility from not being enrolled. Each day you are enrolled, you get the 0 util, so no positive contributions, but you also have to pay contributions. And so so you get the negative values in the future from paying contributions, but also not, oops, sorry. There we go. But also for not being enrolled for the first 2 periods. So that's going to end up being -4, more negative than enrolling in time 1, versus the